All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the art of the flawed argument. We are going to expose those persuasive little tricks and rhetorical traps you hear every single day. In political speeches, in ads, and yeah, probably even in arguments with your friends.
You know that feeling, right? You're in the middle of a debate, and something just feels off. The other person sounds so confident, and they're making what sounds like a solid point, but you walk away feeling like you were kind of cheated, not fairly defeated.
Well, that feeling, that's your brain picking up on a crack in the other person's logic. These deceptive arguments, they have names, they have patterns, and the best part is, once you learn to spot them, you can never, ever unsee them. And that brings us to our main idea, the logical fallacy. Think of it like a bug in the software of an argument. The key thing to remember is that these aren't just honest mistakes. Oh no, they are often very deliberate strategies designed to bypass our rational brain and hit us right in our emotions or biases. Today, we're going to arm you with 3 of the most common ones for your mental toolkit. Okay, so let's start with an absolute classic. This is probably the one you've run into the most, whether you knew what to call it or not. It's that move someone makes when they realize they can't fight the idea, so they decide to fight the person instead. It's called ad hominem, which is just Latin for to the person. And that's exactly what it is. It's a really clever pivot away from facts and logic and a sharp turn toward personal attacks. And you know why it's so effective? Because we're social creatures. Our first instinct is often to judge the messenger before we even really analyze the message. This example just nails it, doesn't it? The focus shifts in an instant. Suddenly, we're not talking about whether an idea is right or wrong anymore. The entire conversation has been hijacked and turned into a character assassination. Once you get the hang of spotting this, you'll start seeing it absolutely everywhere.
All right, let's grab our next tool. Now, this fallacy doesn't go after a person, it goes after our sense of security. It works by painting this terrifying picture of the future, all based on one teeny tiny initial step.
And this one is called the slippery slope. The argument basically creates this imaginary and, let's be honest, usually unproven chain reaction. It tries to convince you that if we allow one little seemingly minor thing to happen, we're all going to find ourselves sliding down this slope totally out of control until we crash land in complete disaster. So here you can see the fundamental flaw. The entire argument depends on the idea that one small step inevitably leads to catastrophe. But here's the catch. It almost never gives you any proof for the links in between. It's just pure fear-mongering, designed to skip right over logic and go straight for our anxiety. Now for our third and final tool. This is a fallacy that operates by making the world seem much, much simpler and way more divided than it actually is. It's a real tactic of control, and it works by straight up limiting your options. It's called the false dilemma, and it's so powerful because it just erases all nuance, all the gray area. It works because, frankly, our brains kind of like simple choices over messy realities. This fallacy totally exploits that preference by taking a really complicated issue and boiling it down to a stark black and white choice, basically forcing you to pick a side. And here it is, the most famous example of all time. You are either with us or against us. I mean, that simple phrase is incredibly effective at polarizing an audience and demanding loyalty. It leaves zero room for questions or for partial agreement or for, a third option. It's a trap, plain and simple, designed to control the whole narrative. So, there you have it, 3 of the most common logical fallacies that you are going to run into out there. But don't think of these as rules you have to memorize. Think of them as tools you can now use to dissect arguments and shield yourself from being manipulated. So let's do a quick recap of your new toolkit. First, you've got the ad hominem, where they attack the person, not the point. Second, the slippery slope, where they predict this disastrous chain reaction without any real proof. And third, the false dilemma, where they force an either-or choice just to get rid of any middle ground. Now that you have the framework, now that you can identify these tactics as they happen, the real question is, what are you going to hear differently? When you listen to the news or scroll through social media or get into your next debate, what flaws in logic are suddenly going to become crystal clear?